Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it is Monday, November 13th. You know what we do on Mondays? It's Mondays with McCool. I bring on James McCool, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, as well as the Theory of DFS for advanced players with the custom Excel tools. You can pick up both of these. Theoryofdfs.com. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Give me those thumbs. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If you're new here, James.
Yeah.
I was doing pretty damn well after the first set of games. And then, like any high-priced player in the late games, they just took a big chunk of money away from me. We're going to go into results DB in a second. Some of the ownership on that ended up happening on the slate was wild. Like, I don't know if I was more off on certain stacks and certain players that I've been this past week. I don't know if it would have changed that much. I mean, it was people I thought were overowned as they were, and then they come in even more overowned. But in general, I won in cash on DraftKings yesterday. Lost on FanDuel. Kind of broke even-ish on props. Kind of a day that if I didn't do all that work, if I didn't watch Red Zone, if I didn't do anything, like my bank account would have pretty much been the same. So it's kind of like, well, that was entertaining. That was what, 7-8 hours of commercial-free football for nothing, really. Kind of. How was your Sunday?
I did not break even. I had 3 of my 5 lineups bubble basically everything, which was a bummer because the late games were pretty much what killed me. I had a Dallas stack, I had a Cincinnati stack, and I had a Charger stack, and they scored in respectively 157, 154, and 159.
So those aren't bad scores. I mean, that's near the cash line.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I bubbled everything. I was basically within 10 points of cashing on all of my main lineups. I was split across, the 150, the 100, SE, 50, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit tilting. I went out of the first games feeling pretty good for the most part. But then, man, those weekend game or the afternoon games were just killer overall. If you did not eat the ownership on a lot of these guys, you were just murdered. So I thought there was a really good GPP week. I liked the way that I went into it. I was really heavy on Keenan Allen. I thought that he was the best play on the slate, and he turned out to be the best play on the slate. But there were just certain things. It was a chalkier week than I had hoped that it would be, and I ate some of the wrong pieces of chalk.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up some of my lineups as we go over. Let me bring up. I always throw them all in like the play action. I focus myself in GPP on games.
Yeah,
because when the scoring is low, and of course I can't up them. I've got to log in. The thing about this is that with the DFS side is that when you're logged into like their sportsbook side, like they log you out like every 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So you constantly have to log in and log out. But I focus more on game-based lineups than team-based lineups. So if I could just bring this up right here. Let me put this on the screen. So if I go to go to the play action. So I always throw all my line 14 lineups. And I just full out. I mean, I was full out, like not even playing certain games at all.
Yeah.
So if I go to my teams, go to my teams.
Show only mine.
Okay, there you go. So like my best lineup was 172.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I don't mind playing chalk, Texans, Bengals, but I want to play 5 guys. I want to go Burrow, Boyd, Chase, Singletary, Dell.
Yeah.
Right. And then fit in the best around it. Right. Buccaneers, Rashad White correlation, Bijan Robinson, Evan Ingram at tight end. There you go. Right. Second lineup, Josh Dobbs.
Oh,
I love this. I love this lineup going into the late games.
yeah.
I loved it. He's like in 7th place in some whatever $100 single entry, right? Dobbs, Addison, who died in the second half and didn't do anything. Hawkinson, who was on obviously only playing. Hawkinson was only going to play in important snaps, which were just all defensive snaps. So I guess those were the most important snaps to play.
Right.
And then Kamara and Olave coming back. Like I want 2 pieces. I want 3+2 in a lot of these lineups. Burrow, another Burrow lineup. Like my worst lineup was a Heineke lineup.
Oh, I support that though. Yeah.
London, Pitts, right? And then this is the lineup that you play like Marquise Brown, right? This is the lineup that you play McBride or something like that, right? Here's a Trevor Lawrence. The games I was focused on, I played 2 Lawrence lineups, 2 Purdy lineups, right? Out of my 14. So I have 4 lineups from the San Francisco-Jacksonville game. I have 4 lineups from the Heineke, from the Arizona-Atlanta game. So I have 2 Kyler lineups and 2 Heineke lineups. Then I played Baker Mayfield. I didn't play the other side. I just played Baker Mayfield side with, Hopkins and Okonkwo coming back. Mayfield, White, Evans. And then Josh Dobbs, not Carr on the other side, but Josh Dobbs on that side. And then Burrow with not CJ Stroud on the other side. So those are the games. And it's like, if you were from the Packers or the Steelers, I didn't have any Packers, no Steelers. No, the only one-off from other games I had was like Amon-Ra St. Brown as a one-off, right? Because you have a spot. If you're not going to play Chase in the lineup, you're sitting there going, do you play – you're in that McCaffrey, the AK zone as a one-off kind of a utility player. So, like, I had some Amon-Ra St. Brown in there as well. But I was so much more focused on the games. And if we take a look at results DB, this is from the Millie. This is I was so far off this. I don't know how it got. I'm going to ask you, why was Jared Goff 14% owned in the Millie? Like, I take a look at this and I go, okay, I predicted Joe Burrow to be the chalkiest quarterback, and I thought he was going to be the stack. He was going to be like 18% owned. And it's like, do I even play Burrow at that? It's like, I'll have 2 Burrow lineups and I'll just game stack it. Because a lot of people may not play 5 guys from the game. They'll just play 3 or 4. So, I mean, I knew he was going to be high owned, and I also thought the second highest owned would be Geno Smith.
Yep.
Right? Same. Geno Smith with Lockett and Metcalf and JSN in that game. I thought Goff would come in at like 7% or something like that. And I was considering playing that, but that game had a lot of expensive pieces. So, like, to play 5 guys from that game, like, it was nearly impossible. I'm not playing Eckler, Allen, Amon, right? You have no money left. The thing, it's not just Goff. Will Levis, 11%? Like, I thought I had Will Levis projected for like 4% ownership. And even that I had as over-owned. And then even weirder, Taysom Hill was 8.7% owned as not even the quarterback for the Saints. Kyler Murray was only 6%. Why was Kyler Murray under Purdy? Why was Kyler Murray, of all people, lower owned than Levis, Purdy? I mean, some of them are recent too. Yeah, I can see why Stroud is owned because of last week, right? Dak, I could see that, but people went to play Jared Goff at 6,400, twice as likely as Kyler Murray coming back at 5,900 when he normally would be priced in the 7Ks.
Yeah. So here's a statement. This looks like everybody just subbed to RPS this week. Just jammed.
No, but this is the million. This is 177,000 entries.
No, I know that. I know it's a joke statement, obviously. But like, I heard a lot of people talking about Will Levis and like That was in like the cheat sheet thing or whatever the Big T posted on Twitter. And like Will Levis, and I don't know why. I had like 5 questions in the morning about Will Levis. And I was like, guys, I don't know why anybody is.
Will Levis, I could get. I mean, Will Levis, I could see this. I could see taking a shot on a rookie.
No, but I couldn't see why I was getting so many questions about it. It's just out of nowhere on a slate like this.
Where does the Goff ownership come from?
Well, that was the best game environment on the slate. Like I did not have Jared Goff projected for 14% ownership. I had him projected for 6% ownership. But like me seeing that Jared Goff got steamed up when we knew that Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be high owned, like and that game environment between the Chargers and the Lions makes a lot of sense. Both these teams are high upside, blah, blah, blah. Like I can see higher ownership on Jared Goff. I couldn't see 14%. I wouldn't have projected that, but I certainly could see him being relatively highly owned. The Will Levis thing is dumb. The Taysom Hill thing, what?
That was the weirdest one to me. It's like,
I don't even know what to say.
Owned?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. That is.
Taysom Hill was higher owned at 5,100 than Baker Mayfield at the same price as a real quarterback, and right. Kyler Murray at 800 more. I mean, he was higher on than Geno Smith. Like you play Taysom Hill. I mean, it's not like there were. I look at the wide receiver ownership. It's not like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave were both 6% owned. So it's like, where does this Taysom Hill? I mean, of course, it's the Millie. If we look at, if I go to the 555, the 5,000 entry, $555 Millie. I mean, this is going to look much different, right? You take a look at this. This is much more. I mean, look, Taysom Hill 3.8% on. I mean, I mean, I still think that's high. But we take a look at this, and it's like, this is what I looked at more. Look, Will Levis, 7%.
Sure.
Burrow, 13. Geno at 9. Right? This was more of what I was expecting, right? We take a look at wide receiver in comparison. Say, I expected Hopkins to be owned. I expected St. Brown to be owned. Obviously, Trent Irwin in sharper contests was more owned than Tyler Boyd, and vice versa in the regular Millie, right? Tyler Boyd was way more owned than Irwin in the $20 Millie compared to 555.
I was tilting my entire face off on that first Irwin touchdown.
Yeah, but he only touched the ball 3 times. He only had 3 catches, right?
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean that the tilt isn't happening when he starts off the game with a 32-yard
I'm just saying he didn't break the slate or anything. It just anyone that's victory lapping Trent and Irwin, just realize it's one of these things, right? I go by, if you knew the information beforehand, would you have still made the same decision? And I look at it and I go, if you knew that Trent Irwin was going to get targeted only 4 times, would you have still jammed him? And the answer was no, and I didn't jam him. So like, that's fine. And then you could say the same thing. If you knew the score of the Cowboys game, if you knew the actual score of the Cowboys game,
would you still play Tony Pollard?
Would you still play Tony Pollard in 40% of your lineups? And I would have. And I would have then. He's the only one that doesn't score on the team.
I know.
He's the only one that doesn't do anything on the team.
I wrote up for the Cowboys. I wrote up a Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, and CeeDee Lamb stack. I thought that was what I thought was the best stack to go with. And then Tony Pollard ends up with 55 rushing yards and jack shit else. Just the worst.
Right. If we look at their running back ownership, the difference, like, it's one of these things that people like clicking on certain people and not others. Like, the high stakes players, the sharper players don't mind playing Mixon, even though he's horrible, right? Yeah. So we see in the Millie, Mixon was the highest owned running back, but then Pollard was the second. Then Bijan, then Rashad White, then McCaffrey, Najee Harris at 13%. But I mean, no one wanted to play Devin Singletary, and I played Devin Singletary.
I did not play Devin Singletary.
If 30 for 150 and a touchdown.
If I'd have known that he was only going to be 5% owned, I would have played him.
Yeah, but why would you have thought he was going to be anything more? I didn't think he would be double-digit owned at all. I thought he would be 8%, like something like that. And he came in at 7.7. What did you
I
project
projected
his
him at,
ownership?
like,
You couldn't have projected him for higher than what, 12 or 14?
no, like 10%, like 10%. If I'd have known that he was going
Okay,
to be
so
half
that's
of that, but I did not like him enough to play him at a point where there was even a risk of him being 10 to 15% owned. I didn't like the running back chalk much at all this week. So I was looking for these cheaper guys. Like I played Jerome Ford. I played Brian Robinson. I would have played Singletary had I known that he was going to be 5% owned. That's a
right,
shot.
I mean, you played good guys also. I mean, Brian Robinson obviously did well.
Yeah.
Jerome Ford was barely. I mean, he got you 14, 15 points for 5,300.
But like we don't look back and be like, oh, those guys did well. Like I left Devin Singletary out, and it was a process mistake because if I should have left him in had he been lower owned than that. That's annoying.
Taking a look at a little bit more of this ownership. I mean, I thought DeAndre Hopkins on DraftKings was just way. I mean, I didn't have him at 28, but I had him at 20 and running lineups. I had the only time I played DeAndre Hopkins was in a Baker Mayfield lineup. Like that, I purposely, like my 2 Baker Mayfield lineups had Hopkins, but I am playing one off Hopkins. I'm also not playing one off Deontay Johnson.
I played one off Deontay Johnson, but I was not going to touch DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, I had him at 16% owned. Like I had him projected there, and that was over owned. So him coming up at 28% owned is like, and that's probably what led to the Will Levis ownership, right? Like,
right.
People just correlating that, I guess.
What were you doing? What did you do in the morning with the Chase thing? Because we see, I mean, the biggest difference on the slate, if let's say you have to think that if we played the slate out again and Chase wasn't on the injury report and everything was fine, like there was literally nothing wrong with Jamar Chase, and we got, okay, T. Higgins is out. And they're facing the Texans, and Chase is 8,600. You have to think that Chase being 11% owned, all this ownership from Amon-Ra St. Brown just goes all to, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown comes in at 11% owned, and Chase comes in at 30% owned. And obviously, you get rid of Trent Irwin. Like, Trent Irwin would end up being like that sneaky 4% play because people are like, they're going to play Boyd in his absence, in Higgins' absence. But, like, I played Chase in a Burrow lineup, but it was very hard for me to tell what people were going to do with Chase. I knew exactly what people were going to do with Hawkinson. Like, I knew Hawkinson was, like, people were not going to touch him, so I'll play that in the Josh Dobbs lineup. The thing that annoyed me was I originally had Hawkinson in my DraftKings cash lineup. Mm-hmm. Now, I did well in DraftKings cash anyway, so it didn't matter. But I had Hawkinson and the Cardinals defense. And then once I saw that, well, Hawkinson may not play as many snaps, and it's like, I originally had Chase in my DraftKings cash lineup, right? I originally had both of them. But it's like, I don't head into cash games where you're looking for median outcomes. Like, I don't want to take on risk for no reason. There's plenty. I'll play Amon-Ra St. Brown instead of Chase. And I don't have to worry about it, right? I don't have to worry about him, right? I take out Hawkinson. I put in Engram. I don't have to worry about him, right? And then I see in the first half, Hawkinson is, he's out injured on every play. Like, it's like he's one step away from being on the IR on, like, he catches the ball, gets tackled, and then has to sit out 2 snaps. And then he comes back and he does it all over again. But the key on the slate to me was how you handled the Chase news. And had I known, I don't know. See, the thing is that 11% of the milli, I would think is a little bit under-owned. But the thing that I was trying to gauge was I'd love to play Jamar Chase at single-digit owned. But I want to avoid him like the plague if he actually comes in over 20% owned. And I didn't know what the field was going to do, if they were treating it as he's good to go. And I also expected Burrow's ownership to be so much higher than it was. So obviously, the more Burrow that's being played, the more Chase is likely to be played. So, like, yeah, I had Chase in my 2 Burrow lineups, but how did you handle that Bengals situation? I mean, obviously you didn't play Trent Irwin. You're tilting the fact that he scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't gonna touch. I wasn't gonna touch Trent Irwin one way or another. So I figured that Jamar Chase was gonna play basically from Friday. They said that it was just a pain thing, and that he was going to warm up with the intention of play. And then as soon as he started warming up, they're like, oh, well, it's a pain thing. There's nothing structurally wrong. Whenever I see there's nothing structurally wrong with somebody, it's an NFL player, man. He's going to get out there. He's going to make sure he does his thing. So the question was really, well, how is that going to affect his ownership? And as I was looking at the trending ownership, because I run a trending map of ownership from Thursday through Sunday so that we can see who is gaining steam throughout the week, right? Trent Irwin was getting way steamed up. By the time I did my last ownership run for Sunday morning, he was projecting for 17% ownership. So like when you see that, it's like people are jumping on to Irwin, people are jumping off Jamar Chase. If you look at the negative trend, Jamar Chase was one of the ones that was having that negative ownership trend. The question was like, by the end of the day, I had him projected for 18% ownership. Which way is he going to go? I was fine with him up to like 30% ownership, where Amon-Ra St. Brown ended up. And anything under that is gravy. So I was more than happy to have him. The problem was I liked Keenan Allen more than I liked Jamar Chase in a vacuum. I liked Keenan Allen more than I liked Amon-Ra St. Brown in a vacuum.
I mean, and then once you deal with the ownership that Keenan Allen is 8% owned, I mean,
that was sick.
If your attitude is that if all of them were the same ownership, you'd prefer Keenan Allen.
Yeah,
that means like all the leverage you're getting here is like free to you.
Yeah, it was great. I had Keenan Allen anywhere that I could have him outside of stacks. I had a Cincinnati stack where obviously I paired with Chase. And then on my Charger stack, I had both Keenan Allen and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But outside of that, anywhere where I could afford to have a high-priced wide receiver, I had Keenan Allen. So Jamar Chase, it was like, it was, how were people going to handle it? And I figured that people were still going to play him. I thought he was going to come in somewhere around 20% owned. I did not think that he was going to drop ownership. So that drop in ownership was really, really nice. The problem was that even if you nailed getting Jamar Chase, it didn't matter because CeeDee Lamb crushed and Keenan Allen crushed.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown crushed.
And there was no payoff, basically, from nailing Jamar Chase being underowned. Now, if those guys failed and you got Jamar Chase 11% ownership, that's easy street. Like, that's great. You made the right choice. You nailed it. You got paid out for it. The problem was that was not the spot where you got paid out. The spot where you got paid out this week was basically running back, where I was wrong. I nailed wide receiver, but I got killed on running back. So I actually thought that the question on this slate was how do you handle Rachaad White and how do you handle Joe Mixon? Those were the two guys, well, and Bijan Robinson, but it's fade Bijan Robinson until like next year, basically.
He did fine. They gave him the ball.
He was appropriately priced and he was overowned.
Well, they gave him the ball. At least they gave him the ball.
Results oriented. Anyway, I figured it was more about Rachaad White and Joe Mixon and how you handled those guys on this slate. Obviously, Rachaad White ended up doing well. I sided with the Joe Mixon side, mostly because I had the money to do so. But I thought that was where you were really going to be making your money or not. And Tony Pollard, obviously. But going into the slate, again, if you tell me Dallas scores 49 points and the Giants only have 17, I'm playing Tony Pollard. It does not matter. I'm just playing Tony Pollard in that. So this was a really interesting week where I think that a lot of the decisions that you had to get right, even if you got them right, the payoff was not quite as much as the leverage that you would have gained. I don't think that making all of the correct decisions this week really paid you out all that well.
Well, the one thing we mentioned before about Dallas, how often do we ever see? I don't know, ever. I'm not sure. That the most expensive, that a $4,400 defense on DraftKings. Now, the FanDuel pricing on defense makes it, and the whole pricing in general on FanDuel, makes it so much easier to pay up at defense, right? Because the way the salary cap works there. But on DraftKings, you're often very incentivized to pay down at defense. But to have a $4,400 defense be 33% owned, yeah, good luck to you. I mean, I looked at all the sharp lineups, all the like people I know in cash games.
Yeah.
Everyone played the Dallas defense, and I'm the only one that played the Browns. Like literally, like the only, because I don't care. Maybe it's a weakness of mine, James, but the heuristics that I use, especially in cash games, are I don't care what the Dallas defense projects for, because defense is so ridiculous to project that I'm going to pay down. The cheapest defense I was willing to play was the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to plug in the Cardinals, and then I'm going to run the aggregated optimal and go, oh, Hawkinson is in it, and I don't want to deal with that risk. Oh, Chase is in it. I don't want to deal with that risk. So I X those guys out, and I run it with the Cardinals, and I get a 49-5 lineup. Right? So I take out the Cardinals because the Browns actually projected higher than the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And I get the Browns lineup. And I go, okay, I guess I'm going with this. If I plug in the Cowboys, it's like, oh, that means I don't get Amon-Ra St. Brown anymore. Like, oh, I have, in order to play this lineup, I need to play Trent Irwin on a questionable target share.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, nope, this is fine. I'll play the Browns defense. And the only time I played the Dallas defense were in lineups where like I think I played it in one lineup, and I think that was primarily like a Falcons Kyler lineup, because once you plug in McBride and Marquise Brown and Bijan and London, it's like you have so much money that even if you play Christian McCaffrey and Amon-Ra St. Brown, like you still could get the Cowboys defense. So like that was the only time. But you know how many people were tilting the Dallas defense, even though you saw, if you watched the game, that the Giants are probably going to get the number 1 pick in the draft this year.
Yeah.
The way their offense is, I mean, they don't even have it. Tommy DeVito is not a serviceable NFL quarterback. Like you look at Clayton Tune and go, I wish I had a guy like that.
Yeah.
That's how bad Tommy DeVito is.
How is he on that? How is he on that roster?
An emergency, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
He's a practice squad guy, I guess.
If you are so bad that you're not a serviceable third string quarterback, like you shouldn't even be on a roster.
I think it's more due to the fact that Daniel Jones was paid all that money. And they're like, oh, we'll get Tyrod Taylor, and that's a serviceable backup. And then it's just emergency guy, practice squad, and then injuries happen so quickly that it's like that they couldn't get Josh Dobbs in to quarterback them as well.
Bad. Anyway, I think that is a leak of yours, staying away from the highest owned defense in cash, not in GPPs. Who cares about that? But like you don't want to lose to defense.
I don't care. No, screw that. I don't mind losing to defense. I don't mind.
That was aggressive.
James, the difference is if it's the cheap defense. Like, let's say, for instance, the Arizona defense. We take Dallas off the slate, and it's like the Arizona defense is 50% owned in cash games, and it's like, well, the $2,400. I'm playing the Jacksonville defense. It's like at that level, that $100. But there's a big difference, a $1,400 difference in defense. Sure. I mean, that's the difference. That's the difference between playing Amon-Ra St. Brown in my cash lineup or not, or ending up with Deontay Johnson in my cash lineup, which would have been death, right? Or going down to Geno Smith instead of Joe Burrow, which wouldn't have mattered as much. Mm-hmm. And of course, I didn't love my decision in the beginning of the game of the Baltimore game, where Baltimore just runs. I mean, good luck. I mean, dude, look how many points were scored in that game, and was there a serviceable fantasy asset of anyone in that game?
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell, I think, was probably fine.
Fine. But I'm just saying, with the amount of points that were scored, it went over 60, and neither quarterback did. Is
that the second week in a row that's happened with the Browns? Didn't the Browns put up like 22 fantasy points, and they gave up like 30 points?
And then no one in the game got there. Right. Yep. No one. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens have scored almost 100 points in Lamar Jackson in the past 3 games, and Lamar Jackson has like
1 touchdown.
No, 2 actually 2. He threw a pass to OBJ, and OBJ ran it in. So
I meant 1 rushing touchdown. He has 1.
I don't care. Who cares about rushing? Or I want them to go like if you saw their totals, it's like, oh, the Ravens the past 3 weeks have put up 30+ points. You're like, well, I'm starting Lamar, and you lost.
I think the Dallas defense is right playing cash. But to your point, it is the most variable position, obviously, in terms of projections, and paying up for a variable thing is typically bad. It's like paying up for a goalie in hockey, which, by the way, I came in 4th in the 444 last week because
Are you playing hockey also?
Yeah.
have you always played hockey?
I love hockey. It's
I've started to play
it's
NHL.
baseball on ice, bro. It's just baseball on ice.
I've been doing pretty well in NHL.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I mean, I took down 10K. I was 1 point away from 30K last week. But my goalie put up 4 freaking fantasy points because I played the most expensive one. Never played the most expensive goalie in freaking hockey. Anyway, it's like paying up for variance is typically bad, but when it comes to cash games, man, like you want to block people. You just do. And blocking people at defense is like it's just, I think it's no brainer.
I'll block people in the other positions.
You don't even block people. You were gonna play.
I don't care. Take a look at my lineups this year, James. I'm typically off on the Browns were 2% owned in the $25.
That's what I'm saying. You're not blocking anyone. You're playing.
Yeah, but I'm blocking all the other positions. How am I supposed to block everywhere? I can't block everywhere.
You should block everywhere. You should block as much as you possibly can. You don't want to finish more than the 50th. I don't play the highest owned lineup. I play the lineup that's the most credible. I'm playing. I don't care what I don't care. I didn't play Bijan in cash. I'm not taking on that risk. I'm a nit, right? I played a 4 wide receiver lineup. My cash lineup, but look at this. I didn't play the 2 high. I believe. Can we go here? I think I actually faded in my cash lineup the 2 highest owned slots. Didn't have either of those guys. Let me take a look. I believe so. The Cowboys defense and Trey McBride. No, I had Mixon. Okay, I had Mixon. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I did not have 24 points out of Trey McBride. And I did not have the Dallas defense getting bad process. How did you not have Trey McBride?
I had the money for Ingram.
Bad process.
Are we going to trust a 1-game sample size from Trey McBride with a new quarterback, or Evan Ingram, who normally gets 8 targets a game?
He's 3,554% owned. Just start there and move along.
I won anyway, James. I won anyway.
You would have won more.
It's a double up. I don't need to win more. Right. This was my cash lineup right here. Burrow, Mixon, White, Dell, Marquise Brown, Boyd, Evan Ingram, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the Cleveland defense. Look, I ate into all of this ownership. Right. But of course, 20% on instead of playing Trent Irwin. But if you see my mentality of, if you take a look at my lineup, do you have any? Do you feel like I look at this lineup and I go, every spot in this lineup, I know what their role is. Their projection is not fragile, right? I know Burrow. I know Mixon. I know Rashad White. I know Tank Dell. I know Marquise Brown, even though he only got 1 catch. I know a lot more about Tyler Boyd than I do about Trent Irwin. I know a lot more about Evan Ingram than I do Trey McBride and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the defenses. Who gives a crap?
Yeah, I can't really argue with what you played.
I would have played, dude. I didn't mind playing McBride. If I didn't want to change anything else, so it's like if I go down from Ingram to McBride for 1,000, where do I put the money? I just
So
I would end up playing DeAndre Hopkins for no reason. I would end up playing.
Here's the lineup that I would have played with basically that. It would have been Geno Smith, Rashad White, Joe Mixon, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tank Dell, Marquise Brown, Trey McBride, Tyler Boyd, Cowboys defense. And that is paying up a defense. Low. The lineup that I would have played in cash, I didn't play cash this week, but it would have been Joe Burrow, Tony Pollard, Rashad White, Tank Dell, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd, Trey McBride, Joe Mixon, Cowboys defense. And that would have
you would have lost with Pollard in your lineup, you're dead.
You're not dead because all
if you had Pollard in your lineup, you did not cash in cash.
I do not believe it.
What? Repeat that lineup again. I guarantee you that wouldn't have cashed.
Joe Burrow, Tony Pollard, Rashad White, Tank Dell, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd, Trey McBride, Joe Mixon, Cowboys defense.
Yeah, no, you would have. No, you wouldn't have. You didn't have
I would've
Amon-Ra St.
had-
Brown.
No, you're right. You're right.
You know, you would have not even come close. My original lineup had, instead of Evan Ingram, I was playing Hawkinson. That's the guy that I wanted to play, Hawkinson, and then you moved the Cleveland defense out of the Cardinals defense. If I would have done that, I would have crushed I mean, that was the thing, not the McBride. I mean, I didn't want to take on the risk of Hawkinson. I didn't mind McBride. The whole point is that, like, where do I block? Like what do I do?
You have to pay up.
You
get up from the defense. The rest of that lineup's fine. You should have played McBride.
To where 1,000 to what? The Seahawks? I mean, I'm not even getting up to the Cowboys.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Evan Ingram projected for more raw points than Trey McBride.
And he was 40% loss owned.
So
bad process.
I'm playing mostly head-to-heads. Remember, James, I'm playing mostly head-to-heads.
I only play head-to-heads. I know.
Why do you care about ownership? I don't care about
because ownership matters. Block people.
No, I'm going to make my money by playing the better
players. Of the 4 players that I think you should have had 100% in cash: Marquise Brown, Joe Mixon, Trey McBride, Tank Dell. Those were the 4 that you start with. And then whatever, if you want to do whatever else, but those guys should have been in every line.
Oh well, I did fine. I was fine.
You did. No, I know.
And it looks stupid when you look at Evan Ingram's 5 points when Trey McBride puts up 24.
It does look stupid, doesn't it?
Right. It does look stupid. But then you take a look at my final score, and I beat most of the Trey McBride lineups.
Yeah. No, I mean that lineup is really good outside of Evan Ingram. Like if you just and it's just that 2v2 because you can't really go up anywhere else. Like you should have had Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyler Boyd, Marquise Brown, Tank Dell. Like you should have had all those guys.
Like if I take if I take the 1,000 out of Burrow, right, to 5,800, right, to Geno Smith.
Yeah.
I take the 1,000 out of here. I have 5. Now I have 2,000 to spend. And where do I put it?
And then
if I take out Boyd, I go to what? I mean, where does this? Who do I play?
You play Cowboys defense,
and then leave 1,000 and leave 600 on the table.
Leave 600 on the table.
I don't do that.
I don't think that you should have done that. I think that Joe Burrow was the right play in cash, but like
but that's kind of the point that I'm making. It's that it wasn't a thing of like I didn't trust Trey McBride, or it just like it felt like I had too much money. And when I got the money that I wanted, it wasn't enough. Like I couldn't upgrade any of these I couldn't upgrade Rachaad White to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I couldn't upgrade Tyler Boyd to whoever the hell it would be, to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And like if I wanted to play you know what? You actually would have been the better process. You know what would have been better?
Probably Trent Irwin over Tyler Boyd.
No. I vastly preferred Tyler Boyd to Trent Irwin.
I typically agree with you. Yeah.
Play Devin Singletary at $4,700 in cash, knowing that if I instead of playing Boyd, I still play Boyd. I moved to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I instead of playing, who would I see? The problem is that how do you not play Mixon?
Yeah, you have to play Mixon and Rachaad White. Like you really can't.
And you don't have to play Rachaad White. It's just that if you trust Devin Singletary's role, like you have to trust Rachaad White's role for at least median purposes.
Well, and
I trust Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's like then I still end up with too much. I end up basically what ends up happening is that because I have 100 left on the table, is I take out Tyler Boyd, put Amon-Ra Brown in that spot, and put Singletary there, right?
No, I think that the only way, the only difference that you make on this, if you were actually going to like reconstruct this, is like you can't play, and you couldn't play Devin Singletary here anyway because then you have too much from that one Houston Cincinnati game.
Who cares? I don't mind.
So, well, no. When you're building out something like a cash lineup and like that wasn't even the highest game total on the slate, man. Like getting 5 players and pushing in that correlation into a cash game lineup, like you just go bet on the over on that game. That I don't think that would have been right. Devin Singletary was not the right play. I don't know,
dude. What we're talking about, you know how long it took me to enter this lineup?
No, but we just.
I literally told you what I did. It's just I aggregated the projections. I said I don't mind playing the Cardinals defense. Plug that in. And then when I saw Hawkinson and Chase in the lineup, I go, get rid of Hawkinson, get rid of Chase. And then I saw Bijan in the lineup. I'm like, can I play a lineup that's different, that doesn't have Bijan in it? And I looked at that lineup, and then it's like, oh, it's this with 500 left, and I can play the Cleveland defense. And I just it's 60 seconds. So it's like, it's not these things that I spent 3 hours on.
If we're going to take 10 minutes talking about how it's bad process that you played Evan Ingram over Trey McBride, we might as well go all out on it and really break down the lineup, right? Like,
if Ingram didn't project for more raw points, I would have gotten Trey McBride and left 1,500.
It's a process thing. You should have just played him over.
Did you want to have two Cardinals? Okay, did you want to have two Cardinals attached to Kyler Murray in his first?
Here's what we do. Here's what we do. Okay, here's what we do. We are coming down from Tyler Boyd and Evan Ingram. We're playing Trenton Irwin and we're playing Trey McBride. Trenton Irwin projects for as much ownership as Tyler Boyd, and Trey McBride projects for considerably more ownership than Evan Ingram. And then we're taking that savings. So now we have what, 1,625.
Are we putting it in a money market account? Can I put it for the next slate? Can I just take that and put it on the next slate?
I wish, man. I wish. And then we can either pay up from Joe Mixon up to.
We're not moving. You can't fade Joe Mixon with your.
No. You're right. You're right.
You can take out Rashad White because he's only 28% based on your logic. You get basically your logic is if everyone's jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge, you jump with them, right? That's your whole thing. It's like, oh, if everyone's doing it,
if it gets me to the cash line, I'll jump off whatever bridge I need to. So
did you get to the cash line this week?
No, leave me alone.
I did.
So you go from Rashad White to Tony Pollard and the Cleveland defense to the Cowboys defense, and that's how you build out that lineup.
And you lose. Right. That's exactly how
it's the process, not the results. It's the process, not the bridge. Okay. We jump off bridges for a living.
It's like, what are you doing playing Evan Ingram? You're supposed to play Tony Pollard and Trey McBride and lose.
You should. I don't think that you play. I don't think that you lose for that.
Yes, if you played Tony Pollard in your cash lineup, you did not cash.
No. This 2v2 of Rashad White and Evan Ingram versus Trey McBride and Tony Pollard. You absolutely get more points with Tony Pollard and Trey McBride. You 100% do.
Can you even do that? You don't have the money to do that.
You do if you pay down to the Cleveland defense.
To the Cardinals.
Sure.
Who scored what? No, you would have missed. You still would have missed.
Oh, yeah. I guess you pay down from the Cleveland defense. It's about the process, not the result.
It seems like my 3% on defense was one of the main reasons why I.
Yeah, if you want to be results oriented, what is with you today? You're being a nit and results oriented?
This isn't a bad cash lineup. I literally made it in.
No, I said it wasn't. I said it was good.
You think I like going into the slate knowing that Trey McBride is 1,000,000% owned and I have Evan Ingram sitting there with 5 points?
Like you should have played Trey McBride. Should have just left $1,000 on the table.
Should have just did. Yeah, just who cares? What does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, James Pater_DFS on Twitter.
Yep.
PaterDFS.com.
Yeah, PaterDFS.com. And I introduced a really cool new tool for NBA today, game logs, as well as a correlation matrix for teams.
We've never had game logs in NBA?
No, but I have game logs now for the first time over at Pater, which is really cool.
Oh, okay. I just thought maybe you just came up with game logs. It's like, oh, now you get to see what happened the previous games.
No, but it is really cool. I built it out today. It has a couple kind of cool things like touches and passes and expected like rebounding rates and stuff like that. So that's for you to use today. And then, yeah, Pater_DFS on Twitter.
Another thing you can use for free today, for the time being, it's going to go away soon, only for premium members here at RotoGrinders, and that's Sim Labs. Jamino's going to have the Sims up for tonight's showdown slate, the Bills versus the Broncos. And obviously later today, we'll have Grinders Live for NBA and the pre-lock show for NFL. So if you want to, take a look and see what our Sims say and use our SimLabs tool, go to rotogrinders.com/SimLabs. We also have a channel in the Discord. If you have any questions about it, our Discord is at rotogrinders.com/Discord. And I'll see you tomorrow. NHL tomorrow, James. I'll be on. Tim is going to be on tomorrow. We'll talk about the big NHL slate and answer your questions. You could always send in your questions to questions@theoryofdfs.com. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live, because I'm here every weekday, 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.